Welcome to the 38th episode of The Smartest People in the Room. If you've been following this series, you understand what we are doing, shining a light on incredibly smart, accomplished people, helping them share stories from their careers and lives, as well as anecdotes about their past, present, and future. Today, I am pleased to welcome two of the most talented and interesting guys I've ever met, and I bet you're going to love this one. It's going to be a multimedia experience. Before we get started, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Some of you may know that I am a music industry headhunter. By definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the interview. I want to thank our sponsors, for without them, we couldn't do what we do. I want to thank First Horizon Bank, Bufkin Baker, Four Roses Bourbon, the Fairlane Hotel, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmasters brand of CBD products. So let's get down to business. Today's interviewer is my good friend, Bill Gubbins. Bill has a distinguished publishing and media career, including editing national magazines like Cream, Moviegoer, and Country Weekly. While at Whittle Communications, he was a founder of Channel One, the Peabody Award-winning in-school newscast. He currently operates Gubbins Light and Power Company, a firm creating custom media properties for clients like T-Mobile, Microsoft, and Red Robin Restaurants. His photographs have been published in the New York Times, Rolling Stone, and exhibited in the US and Europe. Welcome, Bill.
Hello, Tom. How are you?
Bill I'm fantastic. Thanks for being here. And joining Bill as today's featured guest is Ahmed Zappa. Ahmed is an entertainer, New York Times best-selling author, film and television screenwriter, director, producer, inventor, futurist, and radio personality. He's also acted in feature films and TV. He's hosted hundreds of hours of television. Additionally, he runs the extensive Frank Zappa estate through Zappa Trust as co-trustee. And most importantly, he is a proud husband and father of two. Please welcome these two amazing guests to the smartest people in the room. Take it away, Bill.
You know, it's an honor to be here, Tom. Thank you for having us. And there are very few people that I've met that instantly, in like the first nanosecond, I like this person. And one of them was Ahmed Zappa. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce someone whose smile and countenance could decalcify Mitch McConnell's pineal gland. Ladies and gentlemen, from Los Angeles, California, my friend and collaborator, Ahmet Zappa.
I mean, thank you so much. That's the best intro I've ever had. So many, what a welcoming group. So hello to everyone, on the show. Tom, thank you for having me on. Bill, always great to see your happy face too. I really dressed up today, as you guys can all see. I take what I do very seriously. So. It's great. It's great to be here. Happy Friday, everyone.
Yes, we're both sides of the coin here today. We're going to try a few visual aids here, and Ahmet, Tom, and I have tried to see if we can work this out. But I wanted to tell the audience some of the things that we'll be covering today, so that you stay for the entire hour. Tom. We're going.
I don't know if you're going to show things, but I'll just dive in here. Like, I'm excited to talk to people about the upcoming Zappa movie, the doc, the official Zappa doc, and Tom is now sharing his screen so we can see some other stuff. That there's your amazing work, Bill.
Well, our amazing work, and this is where it starts. We'll talk about the Hot Rats book in a little bit, Tom, which Ahmed and I worked on together. I love the stash. What happened to the stash? That is a question on the table at the moment.
Well, that cock mop that I grew above my upper lip, the ball chamois or dick broom or mustache, you can call it any of those things. It comes and goes. My wife is always disappointed when I don't have one, and I think we've got into some sort of argument. So my passive aggressive behavior is like I shaved it off. I'm like, there, you have to deal with this stupid face now. Sansa like, I don't know, tough cop mustache. I don't know. It does it for her. It just comes and goes. There's the simple answer.
I like it. I like it either way. I loved it the way it looks in the book. And then, of course, we're going to talk about Tom. Most importantly, we're going to talk about not the Hot Rats book. Well,
That guy?
the work of Frank Zappa.
Love that guy.
Here is somebody who's been an enormous influence on my life. And it's very important always to say to people that even if you might not like his music, whatever, this man was one of the greatest artists of the 20th century, right up there with James Joyce and Picasso and things like that. Tom, he has produced and released over 100 albums, which Ahmet, I calculated, tell me if I'm right, Tom, go ahead, would take you something like 145 days to listen to all of them.
That's in his lifetime, he did something like 60 that were put out. And there was still some unfinished stuff. And I mean, there's tons of projects they started, and we have just so much content in our vault that, to have this many records out, it's, I think, quite an accomplishment, because he really was so prolific.
And there's not an uninteresting one in the bunch, but the most important thing we're here to talk about, Tom, is the coming release of Zappa.
What a picture, Bill.
Hey,
what a goddamn picture, Bill.
Well, that's a little inside baseball there, but it's an extraordinary documentary about an extraordinary man that's going to be released on November 27th. And on
Bill, we like to say Thanksgiving because it's the day after.
That's right. That's right.
Day after Thanksgiving, which from now this year can be lovingly known as Franksgiving.
Franksgiving. And now we're going right into the trailer.
This is the number we always play when people ask us to play more, because we know that after we play this, they couldn't possibly ever want to hear us again.
We were loud, we were coarse, and we were strange.
He had so much talent. It defied everything.
You insist on very high and exacting standards.
I think if you shoot any lower than that, you're going to wind up with something sleazy.
Watch out where the huskies go. Don't you eat that yellow snow.
He was just writing all the time. He wouldn't stop.
He heard things a particular way, and then he tried to manifest them in the world. Each show was like a composition.
Frank was considered the Pied Piper of Laurel Canyon. Any kind of rock star, especially the British guys who came to town, wanted to meet Frank.
I haven't heard anything like it before or since.
Frank embodied everything. You couldn't say, oh yeah, that's rock and roll, because it wasn't. It's jazz. No, it's pop music. No. Well, what the hell is it? It's Zappa.
Hey there, people, I'm Bobby Brown.
The Parents Music Resource Center wants a labeling system.
Frank became the go-to person because nobody else in the record industry showed up.
And my name is Bobby Brown.
We live in a country where we're supposed to be free. We supposedly have democracy here. What do? Sit around and go,
He was on a mission, and he was going to accomplish that mission no matter what.
Oh, you're dabbing with that coffee.
I am in the process to see if it's possible for me to run for president in the United States.
It's time for a revolution.
At every point in his life, he was trying to do the best thing that he could to have no regrets.
Don't waste your time.
And I think that's it, Tom. There you go.
Super proud of that. Alex, that's an amazing job.
Yes, and I've seen the documentary. Thank you to Ahmed and to Melanie Starks, and it is fantastic. And then we're also going to talk about Ahmed. I'm very interested in your career because you're sort of Ahmed first and Frank Zappa's son second, and that's one hell of a thing. That's one hell of a thing to accomplish. And
well,
Tom,
I mean, I think my father's balls were wizards, and you know, and thank goodness that he cast a spell on my mother, and you know, and here I am. So yeah, you know, so there you go.
We wouldn't have it any other way. Of course, Ahmet's work, he is the head of Zappa Trust and is involved with all of Frank's reissues. Ahmet's also a novelist and a movie producer and screenwriter. Did you write the screenplay? And
I write lots of screenplays and other shows.
And most importantly, he is a New York Times best-selling author of Because I'm Your Dad. And then after that, we'll get into the book and, you know, cover all that. A little bit of the Hot Rats book and some of the photographs in that. And excellent. Okay, Tom, we're good. So, Ahmet, I think the first thing I'd like to talk about is the documentary. Tell us, first of all, when and how is it going to be released?
The doc is, I might not have all the details, you know, correct in my head, but it comes out on Thanksgiving. So if we have theaters open, you know, I mean, there's a COVID spike, so I don't know the issues there. First and foremost, I hope that everyone is not being a COVIDiot and everyone is staying safe and healthy, and you know, and blessings to everyone, you know, who've been affected by the virus. But you know, in terms of the release, if you're stuck in quarantine, like I think all of us will be, you should be able to find it, you know, wherever you can get, you know, films on Amazon and iTunes and all the usual places on Thanksgiving.
Is there any place they can look or sign up to find out when it's going to be out? The zappamovie.com?
Yeah, I mean, it's all readily available. I mean, if you, whatever way that you normally rent a film, like on iTunes or, you know, all of those places, it'll be available. Perfect. It's going to be widely availed. I don't know when the physical DVD and all those kinds of things will come out. But, you know, people will, in the US, those of you who are watching in the US, it comes out here first. I don't know when it comes out for the rest of the world. So this is just a US only at the moment, because we have there's a different partner, you know, different territories are putting it out at different times. But I'm thrilled with how the film has, like, you know, the final version of this movie. And I can't say enough good things about Alex Winter.
Yes.
I knew him, and you've gotten to know him too, Bill, and you know what a genuine sweet soul and what a creative force he is. But I mean, I met him, I think, after Lost Boys came out, you know, in LA, and we would see each other every now and then and maintained a friendship. And you know, I would be brought in just because of my background in filmmaking. You know, my mother would say, hey, there's the director that is interested in doing a doc, or, you know, I was like part of, I guess, my mother's Swiss Army knife on certain aspects of things of the business that, you know, she started with Frank. And no one really broke through, and she was really particular. There's a lot of media that we have. She's very protective. She, you know, she cares and cared so much about Frank and you know, the partners that she got into business with. So when Alex reached out, I had to give him the disclaimer of like, look, let me just tell you how this could go. The chances of this happening are pretty slim, you know, but I'm happy to, you know, take you up to the house and have you, you know, try your best, you know. And so my experiences up until that date were cautionary tales, because, you know, I would field some incoming calls about people like, hey, how come there hasn't been a doc? But right off the bat, Alex, you know, I had a feeling that his point of view, and he made this little sizzle that I think hit a really great tone. So I, you know, behind the scenes was telling Gail, I'm like, I think that this is going to be a good meeting, and I think you're really going to enjoy spending time with Alex. And, you know, I facilitated this meeting, and they really hit it off. And so much so, I cannot underline this enough, that for someone who, you know, again, very protective of the media, and knowing that we have this giant vault, Alex didn't, you know, he's maybe because he's a you know, a Zappa fan, but he knew that there was a vault, but really didn't know how big the vault is. So the rapidity at which Alex and Gail cemented trust, shared the, you know, core values on you know, politics and just life. They became fast friends. You know, this was, I think, one of the key components that made her feel comfortable enough and felt like Alex, that this movie about Frank, was in good hands with Alex. And, you know, this is Alex's movie. He has final cut. We had no influence on the story that he wanted to tell. Okay, so this was important not only to Gail and to myself, that, you know, Alex was afforded the opportunity to tell a completely honest story, and construct the story in the way that he wanted to or could do. Again, this underscores the trust that we all put in Alex, but specifically because Gail was the one who started this project with him, you know, because Gail was still alive and running the business. And, you know, I wish that she was still here today, because I think she'd be really proud, because, you know, just privately, the conversations I had with Gail, you know, and I think the movie does this. It does tell the story of it does a lot of things, but my big takeaway, the thing that makes my heart smile, and I think my mother would be proud about, is you get a sense of what it's like to be a composer, to be that kind of an artist. You know, it covers Frank as he's a guitar player, he's a musician, he's a filmmaker, he's a visualist, he's has his political mind, you know, but I think at the core, it's his work ethic and the fact that he was always composing music, and that, you know, that was really important to us. That, you know, it's being a musician in a rock band, I think, is slightly different, is different than being a composer and using a rock band to make enough money to be able to you know, hire orchestras to fully flush out the music that was in his head, and the patience he would have to have over the years to meet these milestones that were important to him as an artist. I think that comes through, and I think that's pretty exceptional. And then, you know, I think it shows a side of Frank that is the person I grew up with, who was always very present. You know, I wish I had more time with him because he was always on tour. But when he was there, we were always the focus of his attention. And you know, and honestly, you get to see how he was. He's so loving. Like my dad, I know him as someone who, when he's at home and in his, you know, I guess safe place, you know, he's the first person to give you a hug if you needed one. He was someone you could always talk to. He's very rational, you know, very, very focused person. And I think you get to see some of that, which is more like the dad energy and, you know, who he is, relaxed and not necessarily so much in the media.
Well,
maybe you feel that same way too, and I'm just answering your question in the longest, you know, boring way.
No. Look, for the Zappa fans, of which I'm one, at the granularity, please go granular as much as you like. There's two things about the movie that I would say to the people who haven't seen it. The first is that, you know, I'm a pretty knowledgeable Zappa fan, and there were things in the movie I learned that I didn't know. But the second thing is that I think if you'd never heard of this guy, Frank Zappa, you'd understand him immediately. And Ahmet, just like we were saying the other day, Alex's choice of starting the movie the way he did in Czechoslovakia, right? In Frank's later years was just inspired. And I did not see that coming. And, you know, in my mind, I'm going, well, if I did it, it would be this, that, and the other. The second thing to our viewers is there is a scene in the movie about 3/4 of the way through where it's home movies. It seems like, Ahmet, when you were about 8, 9, 10?
Probably, yeah.
There, folks, there is a scene in there, and you know, Ahmet's playing a video game and somebody's doing something else, and Frank is Gale, and you just had this extraordinary sense of, you know, a family and love. And and you know, I sort of went, God, that's like our, you know, our house was.
Yeah, it was super, like, for us, you know, I can't speak for anyone else in the family, but, you know, it's when you grow up, you know, I don't think you think about what your parents do for a living. I mean, I never really did. I just knew that my father's job, if you're a musician, would take you away from home, and I knew that people knew who he was, but that had no bearing on anything else other than, you know, same old stuff you probably cared about when you're 8 or 9.
Right.
You know, like when my dad was away, I'm like, can you bring me back a toy? Like, when are you coming home? You know, it's all of that stuff. And it's interesting when you think about time, when you lose somebody. Frank, I think this year would be his 80th birthday. I think I'm right about that.
That's right. Yes.
And
yes. In fact, this December, right?
Yeah.
This December. Yes.
Yeah. And you know, when you think about passing away at 52, like he did, that's fucked up. You know, I don't even remember how old I am. I seriously can't. I'm that stupid. I was born in 74. I'm no mathologist. I'm 40 something. So, you know, I'm getting to a place where, you know, like I'm going to be the same kind of age that my dad was. And I look back at that, and having a 9-year-old and having a, you know, a 4-year-old.
Queen.
Who's Melanie? I can hear you talking.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. Hi, Melanie.
Hey, Mel. How you doing, buddy?
You got to hear Melanie's voice.
She's a mystery guest.
Yeah, she's a mystery guest. You know.
Wait, hang on, if I may.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, sort of, given the context, when and how do you remember the moment that you realized, wait a minute, other people know my father. Wait, how do they know him? And that he was something larger and beyond just the person you saw at home.
Well, the larger and beyond thing, I guess that's the point that I was trying to make, is that didn't really dawn on me because, when Frank was home, I'd go downstairs and he'd be playing music, and I had really simple requirements. It was like, I would love to have some of my dad's attention, so he wasn't someone you go outside and play baseball with. He had none of those interests. You could get him to maybe play pickup sticks with you, right? Which I loved.
Right.
He loved playing that, and because he was a great conductor. Like there's nobody better at him with a steady hand. He would just fuck you up in that game. So I urge you all this holiday season, buy one of the cheapest games you can and have some family playtime with everyone and play pickup sticks and maybe wear protective goggles because, if you were in our house, that flick of the wrist, that you might spear your eyeball out.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Frank was a pretty amazing father I guess it's unusual, but again, for us, it was just normal. There was no topic that was off limits. I was never told, hey, stop saying something like that, or don't. I mean, it wasn't like don't do this. If there was something that I'm sure I was so annoying, like I am right now to everyone listening. But it was very constructive, and the criticism on something was always said not to embarrass or disappoint or it was always kind of the way he would talk was like, hey, why don't you try to find another option, or have you thought of doing something like this? So he was pretty great about.
So was he strict? Was he strict?
There's I don't know how to describe it because he never laid a hand on any of us. My mother was more of the disciplinarian. If she was, she'd say hold out your hand if we really misbehaved, and she would smack your hand or something. That's about as crazy as things got, and I suspect that their own upbringing was not like that. And I think they consciously were like, okay, we're going to parent in a very different way. I would hear my parents fight or argue about something, but they would always take that into, a private area. It was never done in front of us, which I have a hard time doing with my own kids. I mean, they were really onto, they're very protective, conscious, in how they raised us, I feel, in looking back on it. Knowing as a father myself how challenging being a dad can be,
So, the Frank's recording studio, extensive recording studio, was in the basement, and so if he was having a session, could you walk down and just watch? And
I would do it all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. You had a sense going in there, because if you walked in, you knew he was either really listening or working on something. And I don't think any of us were really the kinds of people that interrupted that. His presence kind of dictated the fact that okay, you have to be patient and wait for the moment. But I have so many memories of walking down in the studio, and my father would be in the center. The speakers be set up, acoustically for him to be able to, listen in on what was happening. And I would sit right by his side, like next to his feet. I would always see his foot bouncing to the music. I have so many memories of that. He would chain smoke. So I would sit below the smoke, and honestly, he'd be working so much. And that became the best way to hang out with him. Even if I wasn't having a conversation, I really liked being in the same room with him.
Oh yeah.
And the other funny thing that he would do, he was great to hang out with. But he had this big monster movie collection of stuff that he had taped that he liked, on giant 3/4 inch tapes and whatever those Betamax, big beta machines. So there's this one particular movie that he would, I would ask him to play all the time.
What was it? What was it?
Brainiac.
I'm sorry?
It's called The Brainiac. It's this horror film where,
excuse me. I remember seeing that at the Foster Theater on a Saturday afternoon in like 1962 or something. So okay.
Frank fucking loved this movie. I mean, there were moments that would just make him laugh hysterically. So he would put me on a stool with headphones on, plugged into the, the Betamax, while he would be working on his music. So I'd be listening to the film or watching the film, but all of his music kind of creeping in. So it was like having a double soundtrack, which was a pretty surreal experience. And then you would hear him laugh while the Count, or who, the guy that was burned at the stake and was going to return 100 years later during this comet or whatever it was. But he was, the way he would eat brains or transform into the like sucker monster thing, all of the monster moments and how cheesy and cheap that all looked was very satisfying for Frank.
Well, now, did he ever talk to you about music or about, hey, Ahmed, listen to this? Because one of the things that I did with my kids is have them listen to Frank.
Yeah.
In fact, my daughter, Jessie, whenever we'd go to a swim meet at 6 o'clock in the morning, our theme song was directly from My Heart to You from Weasels Rip My Flesh. So.
Well, that's awesome.
Did he say like, hey, Ahmed, here's Edgar Varese, listen to Edgar Varese, or to Ornette Coleman or something?
No, he didn't do that. He I guess where we really related, he bought me the first kinds of, I think they were this Time Life book series called like How Things Are Made.
Yeah.
And it was all the schematics and how you could assemble or disassemble basically everything, right? And those were the kind of conversations I had. A lot of the conversation was also human behavior too. And early on, like as a 6 or 7 year old, he would try to explain to me reverse psychology if I was getting in an argument with someone in the house. Like, this is how I do it, So there were always adult conversations. I guess that's really unusual. We were all friends and we would all hang out, and it wasn't much music talk. It was more science. It was more about the projects that he was working on. He really inspired me when he would talk about the hologram company he wanted to build, and he started and couldn't get off the ground. He, when I would watch him in the studio, it wasn't so much about what was musically happening. I was more interested in how he was, utilizing sound and like the choices that were made.
Right.
So, and I think that also left a mark on me, just because I have my own patents in sound and things I'm interested in from a color perspective. Not to nerd out, but I'm really interested in how sound and sight overlap with one another. So, without getting too nerdy, just what is the color of red? And once we can understand the frequency of red and its various shades and its various sonic properties, I think that could be very useful in treating people and making people feel comfortable, or changing moods, or potentially healing certain things. And for those of you who care at all, go ahead, and if you are on LinkedIn, you can look at all the weird patents and the things I'm contemplating. You can find them on my LinkedIn page, or just search the patent office. But yeah, that's a lot of that is because of conversations I had directly with my dad. He's hugely inspirational to me, certainly with Bruce Bickford, his collaborations with him. I mean, look at the things I'm into now personally. Like I love animation, which he loved, right? I got that from him. I love monsters. He named me after one. My middle name is Rodan, the like rubberized Godzilla, pterodactyl. So I mean, if I said my father's balls were were wizards, then I mean, I've definitely, I think all human life is a science experiment, anyways.
Well, you're right.
So hopefully, I'm doing okay. It's
So were there? Okay, I'm dying to ask. Like, if you were down in the studio, did you? What does this button do? Or did you ever push a button that you shouldn't have pushed?
the only situation like that. Never a button that I shouldn't have pushed. That would have been disastrous. But there was one time at Joe's Garage where the rehearsal facility, the whole band was rehearsing, and musically for myself, I'm a very frustrated musician in the sense that my brain works faster than my fingers, and I'm a singer first and foremost. So how I compose is I hum everything out, and I find workarounds for the instruments I can't play by being able to vocalize, like I'll go play these melodies and right.
Yeah.
But at an early age, when I was had the opportunity to first grab the microphone, Frank's like, yeah, come on, you come up here. You want to sing into the mic? And I was like, oh, fuck yeah. I probably said fuck yeah. I'm like, 8, 9, 6, I don't know. But I go up on stage and I just, I take the mic, and it was like I'm in Pantera or something. I put my mouth over the mic. I'm like, "Wah!" And I like scream as loud and hit the highest note as humanly possible, right? And everyone in the band, including Frank, they all cover their ears because it's the feedback plus me shrieking like a banshee, and I blew up the monitors, and so that really fucking pissed him off. And another one, my brother, this is at the Nassau Coliseum, I think on the 88 tour, someone had a birthday. I don't know if it was Frank's birthday or I don't know. I can't remember the dates, but there was a bunch of balloons, and I tied them, my brother tied them to, I think, the back of my belt loop. And I decided to float across the stage, and try to do something silly just to completely interrupt intentionally. This is me when I was like 15 or 16. And I got like a quick laugh from Frank. And then it was like, what the fuck are you doing? We're like rehearsing or we're in the middle of the show, like get the fuck off the stage. And those kinds of moments, for someone who never laid a hand on any of us, he could give you a look that felt like you're being, like it's the Green Lantern ring, and he's a giant green fist, punching you in the gut. So yeah, he could say a lot more with just a look than telling someone to fuck off, or he's crazy awesome.
Okay, so famous people that would come to the house that you didn't realize they were famous until someone told you.
I didn't really care much about that. I think I kind of knew. I mean, there was pop culture things, but a fun. I'll tell you one that it's so fucking crazy to me. Like, so there was a movie called Blind Fury. All right, that Rutger Hauer, the actor. He's probably most famous. If you guys don't know who he is, he was a replicant in Blade Runner, right? The blonde dude. So he, I mean, imagine how, I just got to tell the story, so bear with me. So I love the comic book Daredevil. I love comics. Frank and Gail loved comic books. Frank was one of the first people to, to take out ads in comic books.
Yes, right.
Music,
right. Right.
So there was a big chest of comics that they would read and enjoy. Like Doctor Strange, I believe, was actually based on Frank. Even if think about it, right? The timing of it all.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but you know, like they loved Doctor Strange. They loved the Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos. They had a bunch of great books. Frank was also friends with Jack Kirby, which is so cool. I got to meet him as a kid.
Wow.
So Daredevil was this great comic, and why I liked Blind Fury, this movie with Rutger Hauer, is because he kind of played a Daredevil-like character. He was blind, but then these weird villagers, I don't know if it was set in Cambodia or something, they teach him how to be this blind swordsman, right? So it's like he's got these extrasensory powers, but he carries this giant walking stick and he can pull it out and there's a giant katana sword in there. But because of his military background, it like makes him like this like commando with a sword, okay? So I see this and I love it. I'm like, that's like a fucking Daredevil movie. This is so fucking awesome. So my best friend, who is still my best friend since preschool, Tori Mel, if you're, I know you're not watching, but hi. So Tori, he's like, I gotta go get one of those. Now, 3 or 4 doors down from Joe's garage, I want to say there was this place called Diligent Dwarves who made movie props, and they coincidentally made this walking stick, right, with the sword. So, because we would hang out at Joe's garage, you know, there was stuff going on. Bands would be there, which is really cool. So, all right, you know, we're like, it's not the greatest part of Los Angeles, you know, but we're like walking down there, and he orders his, you know, staff from Diligent Dwarves. Now, okay, we don't know Rutger Hauer. Okay, the reason why I'm going on and on about this is the day that Tori received his fucking walking stick from Diligent Dwarves, he's down the street at a friend's house. They get into some kerfuffle. So he walks over to my house and shows up at the exact time, right? Like, not the exact time, maybe a minute before. Randomly, Rutger Hauer learned of our address, drove to the house, rang the doorbell. So Tori walks in with the walking stick. Rutger Hauer opens the fucking front door for my mother. Okay. I don't even know this. I'm in my room. Okay. Wow. Oblivious to all of this. I just know that Tori's coming over, and Tori walks into my bedroom. Is like, do you know that fucking Rutger Hauer is, you know, in your house? I'm like, what are you talking about? And so from Tori's perspective, he walks in, Rutger goes, that looks familiar, takes it, pulls it out, does the whole like ninja commando thing, puts it back.
Oh, wow.
And this is all like in 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God, let's go fucking say hi to Rutger Hauer. Frank wasn't up, right? So he left and decided to come back. Didn't meet the guy. So you have like, that's like a random, those are the kinds of bizarre things that would happen because everyone came to the house. Like when you knew, you'd get a weird ring at the door, and you know, those kinds of adventures would happen.
Well, I mean, who else? Just, you know, name drop here. You know,
the things that predate me are and they talk about a little bit in the music doc, you know. So I was born in 74, so Frank kind of knew the usual suspects, like Jimi Hendrix came to the house before I was born, and you know, the story goes that they're jamming in the garden, and somewhere in the vault, you know, we have this tape of Frank and Jimi Hendrix jamming, but Jimmy split his pants. And my mother had to sew his, you know, man hammer back inside. Like she tells the story that she's, you know, I mean, I don't really want to visualize this, but she's like, he was very well endowed and he never took off the pants. And I think she sewed them back together while, you know, he still had the pants on. I don't know how you can play guitar and be in the garden while another lady is brushing up against your junk, stitching your pants back together, but apparently the audio exists somewhere in the vault.
Wow. Oh man, that's unbelievable. Okay, so like, I know, didn't they have every Friday night like a tequila thing?
Well, when my dad was when we knew he was really sick, that became something that I want to say Harry Andronis, who I love, you know, Harry, He loved Frank so much and was a great collaborator with Frank. And this began, thus began this margarita night. So we would all have margaritas with Frank. And that was, that was fun. I mean, my dad, most people think that, he's openly talked about maybe smoking pot a couple of times, and that didn't really happen at the house. It wasn't a, drug taker. I don't think I ever saw him have, maybe wine once at Le Cirque at a weird dinner party or dinner. But I never really saw him drink beers, but he would do that with like friends in the studio. I mean, he would, he's like, have one or two, so I'm told by the people that would hang out with him in the band. But margarita night, that became a pretty fun social situation. And there would be tons of people that would stop by. Chevy Chase, I don't know why that's the only name I can think of right now. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not trying to not answer that question. I just really, I guess I've been around so many people. I don't know what was an unusual visit or not,
Right. I'm looking at some of the messages, and somebody asked, if your dad could come back for a day, what would you ask him?
Angela, that's a nice question.
Yes.
What would I ask him? Well, I'm not. The first thing I would do if he came back today, the first thing I would want to do is just introduce him to my kids.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that pops into my head. And I don't know. There weren't so many mysteries. I don't have any unsolved questions. Maybe I'd like to know more about his family background, because I don't know enough about that. I'd probably ask him more questions about his parents, mostly his dad.
Were his mother and father around when you were alive?
I never met his dad. I used to spend a lot of time with his mom, and she loved her Entenmann cookies, and her Nutter Butters. She lived right around the corner from the preschool I went to. So I got to walk there right around the corner. That was really fun. And I should say, only because we're talking about it, I lost my Uncle Carl and, my Uncle Bobby. Carl just passed away apparently a couple of days ago. And I'm just
sorry.
It's just weird. So I'm sure they're all happy together, getting into mischief up in the cosmos. But Angela, I don't know. I mean, there's more things I'd want to do. I'd want to give him a hug first. I want to have him see my kids and hug him, and try to convince him to maybe not smoke quite as much, because I think he'd still be around if he put down his favorite vegetable every now and then.
Right. He was a smoker. That is for sure.
I mean, I believe that's a contributing factor to a lot of the stuff that he was doing.
So did he say, "Hey, I smoke, but Ahmet, don't you smoke?" Or was that just like whatever?
No, I mean, I have this scar on my chin, right? And everything was available to us. So, and I think hopefully the story makes sense. I hurt myself because I had a biking accident and walked back to back home, and I'm crying and I'm bleeding everywhere, and Gail's not there, and Frank didn't drive, so I'm already stressed out. Like, oh shit! Like Frank has to deal with this. Like he's not the guy, Like he's not taking me to where I need to go because my fucking bone is hanging out of my my face. And so the way that he would try to calm me down, like, you're 9, he's like, Bubba. That's what he would call me, Bubba. You want a beer? And you're like, what? No. And you would start to laugh, and he would, he had many ways of kind of handling it. It all worked out. My face still kind of, it barely works, but I'm dealing with it. So yeah.
Well, all right. So how did you, having someone that large and competent, and from the little time I spent with him, his competence was just unbelievable, as was his kindness.
Yeah, he was a freak in that way. I mean, think about your own story, which we should totally get into at some point, I guess. I feel like I've just been saying useless information. Hopefully people. Thank you, Tom. Bubba. Yeah, I think back with fondly as I'm looking at the chat here. I believe it's gold too, Bubba. You know, when we first met, Bill, I think to what you were alluding to is kindness. You know, this is someone who you liked his music, so you're coming, you know, you're hoping to interview Frank, and we talk about this in you know, in the book, in the Hot Rats book. But imagine, you know, being Frank, and this is what I feel as a father now, right? I can imagine someone, you know, he has a sense that you probably really liked him,
yeah,
and to extend that kindness to you. To say like, yeah, come back and interview me, take some pictures and all of those things. It's
come to California.
Yeah, it's super unusual, you know, and I like that. I think he always had this open mind, and I know he loved talking to people. Those are some of my fond memories growing up. And the way that he treated you, he was interested in what my friends were thinking and doing. So when he was in the kitchen, he would try to interview everyone and say, hey, what's up? And that's that same curious spirit, I think, helped inform his body of work, and maintained, you know, this is why he was such a, I think why people were drawn to him. He's very present. So, you know, your story is extraordinary. When you told me all about it, and it's, you know, if you want to learn, you know, in greater details, the ins and outs, I would suggest people, if they can, check out the Hot Rats book, because, you know, it's an extraordinary moment in time. And your photography, Bill, you know, that was the first time you picked up a camera, right? You didn't know what
really, yeah, yes.
Which is freakish, because the pictures that you have and the access and the comfort Frank must have had, because there aren't many photos, you know, and I've seen a lot, what you captured, that, you know, that it's wonderful. You know, it's like, I'm so impressed with you and your keen eye, and, you know, I love all those pictures. And it obviously, you know, our relationship and friendship grew over our first meeting, but I'm really proud and stoked that your photo, the world gets to see one of your amazing photos, which is the poster for the movie, for the documentary.
You know,
so awesome.
and I want to thank you. I want to thank Melanie. I want to thank John Cirillo. I want to thank Mike Fink, who designed the book. Just because without you, you know, I went to the story of this is I had these photos that sat in a, you know, out in a kitchen table or whatever for a long time. And I had a letter that I don't know that you ever seen, but Frank wrote me a letter, because I had sent him a letter back thanking him, and then it includes some slides. And he sent me this letter, "Dear Bill," and it was typewritten. You know how he would type on that typewriter.
I have that typewriter in the other room, sitting there.
You know, that work table he had.
Yeah.
Back sort of before the house was redone, and he had a movie editing thing. You know, we had the winders and all that. But the thing that I always tell people who ask me, well, what was Frank Zappa like? And in the week that I was with him, my answer is always, he was the politest person I've ever met. And I'm 70 years old, and I met a lot of damn people. And it was almost as if Frank's two mentors were Edgar Varese and Emily Post. I mean, and, you know, I was just off, you know, most of the time I sat in your basement on that couch, the couch that I think in the picture still exists, or some version of that. I just sat in the basement on the couch, you know, and his stuff was everywhere, like his graduation picture, like the real one, the original. And I'm looking through his stuff like, it was like, what the hell? How did I get here? And, you know, and I would, you know, Frank would be usually when we weren't at the studio, or when he wasn't at the studio, I don't want to be we, but when he wasn't at the studio, he was at the house working.
Yeah.
And
He
I
never
would stay
stopped working, right?
Oh, he never stopped working, which was cool. So maybe there were 2 or 3 evenings when it was just the two of us in the basement, and I would stay up all night, and I'm looking at something, and Frank is working, and then I'd see something, and I'd say, Frank, were you on the Steve Allen show? And he'd go, yeah, I was blah, 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 blah. Oh, wow, that's unbelievable. And then, you know, 20 minutes later, I ask him something else. But I'll never forget, in fact, your grandfather, Gail's mother and father came over. I guess maybe her mother, and it was her.
You got to meet my grandfather?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't fucking know that. That's like, I'm so envious. This guy, Captain Jack?
I believe it was. So this.
Do you know a quick little thing? He was at Area 51. He helped invent the Polaris submarine, the first atomic sub, pioneered supersonic flight. And Frank and Captain Jack were planning on building an anti-gravitational machine, like a UFO. And somewhere in our vaults, we have the schematics for all of those things and what they were talking about building. In 1968 or whatever, I believe, the price tag was like $6,000 to $7,000. That was the commitment Frank was going to pay for, you know, this naval, you know, officer to build him a fucking UFO.
Wow. Well, so it was, I think it was my last. Wow. This is good. So it was, I think it might've been my last night there. And so Gail's mother, and I seem to think, was he her second husband or something? Anyhow, they were there. And so here it is, I'm off to the side, and it's a family thing. And I was, you know, okay. But Frank went out of his way. You know, this is Bill Gubbins, and he's so and so forth. And thank you. I mean, when there was another time when Captain Beefheart and one of the Magic Band came over, and you know, Frank was just, Don, this is Bill Gubbins. He's this and he's that. I mean, just unbelievably polite and considerate. And he, you know, when you introduce someone, you're supposed to say the person of lesser, you know, power name first, or like whatever he did. He got all that right. So that was, you know, like I'm just here to confirm, even as the most casual observer, you know, what an extraordinary person he was. And I'm sure you had this. You could almost talk to Frank back then. He was like human fucking Google.
Yeah, no, he that's the craziest thing. It's like, how do you, you know, Frank was literally a member of the X-Men, right?
Right.
he was I like to say he was a musician, right? Not a musician, but a musician, a magic musician. So, he memorized the encyclopedia. You know, he's a self-motivated kind of a person who just absorbed knowledge and then applied it in a unique way. You know, this extraordinary person, and he loved the social experiment. So if he's having people over, what you're talking about, a very gracious host.
Oh, gracious. That's a great one. Yes.
But really interested in everyone, their point of view, and you know, whether you disagreed or not. He was not someone like, you need to believe what I believe.
Right.
No, he was totally socially accepting of everyone's uniqueness.
Well, I think I'm going to somehow, okay, I have it here from Freak Out. There's something on Freak Out that says to the effect of, hey, you know, forget about school and go to the library and educate yourself. And, you know, I was 16 when I read that and was already sort of heading in that direction. And I went, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, to have that, and I think
So you went to the library and I went to the Brady Bunch.
Yes.
I swear to you, like that was the most polarizing thing. It was like, well, my family is nothing like the Brady Bunch. I'm confused here because this TV show is telling me a very different story, especially the episode where Alice stops the kids from going next door with the skinny dipping episode that was banned from television. I think all of you should Google that one. That exists, people.
Wow.
Watch it.
All right. So how did you, well, maybe we've already answered this, but how did you sort of, make your way beyond what would be the enormity of his gravitational pull? How did you sort of find your own way and become Ahmet?
Well, I was just encouraged to do that. My parents, as an example, early on, they were like, we know you're not going to go to college, right? I didn't have any interest. But they were like, why don't we just support your creative endeavors? So one of the fondest memories I have, I saw early on, my dad and my mother, there was this guy, Wally something or another, I'm blanking on his name. But we got introduced to him and he was working, they found this guy to work with me on a particular project, as well as I think Frank's accountant. But long story short, I wound up in White Plains, New York, taking meetings with my dad at MasterCard and American Express because I had this idea of doing something which has come into an existence. I wanted to try to do two things. One, create the library card, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Or your report card, as I was calling it, as a play on words, so that you had your school ID became a debit card, and this way you could track all the money coming in and out, and it became a cashless society. This is me at 15, right?
Apple Pay 30 years ago,
Yeah. So I explained to him, like, look, why isn't there a way that could teach kind of economic freedom and a way to, balance your own, like give you some ways to learn about money and saving and financial responsibility and all of those things. But more specifically, everyone's allowance, right, or globally, is all of this untraceable money that was projected like it's in the billions and billions and billions of dollars. So it's like if I got a micro payment off of every report card, that could be a significant business model. So my dad was like, yeah, you're right. And so we wound up taking these meetings and I explained, like, look, here's what I do. I'm a kid. I like comics, I like movies, I like concerts, I like entertainment. So let's start doing branded cards. Let's try to roll in all of these things.
When is this? What year? Give me a time frame. 83, 84.
I was 15.
Okay.
14, 15.
Had been 89.
Yeah. So we're, I'm there with my dad. He's in a suit. I mean, we took all of these meetings. Like that's an example of them supporting me within someone who wrote up the business plan. I'm presenting it to the board of like the heads of Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. And I got to say, I think that they implemented some of my ideas, but then again, I'm an egomaniac. So I believe that to be true, but that happened,
Well, they exist. I'm getting the signal from Tom that we should begin wrapping up. I want to ask you, I want to ask you about two pet things from the vault, if I may.
Sure. I won't know the answer probably, but go ahead.
When is Edgar Varese, The Rage and the Fury going to be, will it be released? I mean, I'm not, I have looked forward to that album for 20 years since the first time it was announced. People might not know Frank supervised the recording of Edgar Varese's music that was recorded the way you record a rock band. So anyhow,
that particular project is a special and unique one. It will see the light of day. part of what happened with the Kickstarter campaign as it pertains to the Zappa movie, what that campaign allowed for us to do, and just to bring quick context to this, is that we found out that there was a ton of visual media that was dying because the shelf life of some of the tape stock, just can't handle it, and it wasn't, stored in the best way. So there is a lot of stuff was preserved through the process of making the Zappa movie, and also brought context. You see a tape, whether it be audio or visual or both, with something written on the spine that says what it is, and you might put it in there and discover that's not that, right? So through this process, there was a lot of critical understanding that was gained around the media. And the goal for that particular project, because a lot of footage was shot around it, is to have this special project that you get to see it, you get to feel his reaction, because it was so important. I was there. I know how important this project was for him. And I think it was very emotional for Gail, because she could have put it out. I don't know. I suspect it's probably too painful, knowing how important, that music was to Frank.
And just all I can say, I understand the private, but when you're ready to put it out, call me.
Oh, we're working on it.
First in line.
You'll get the call, Bill.
Well, what else is coming up? I know a lot of Zappa fans out there. What do we have to look forward to?
Oh, I'm so knee deep in it with the movie coming out. We hopefully will be announcing something fun. I'm trying to work out the details. Hopefully if you see us announce it, then you'll know from this what I'm talking about. But we're hoping to do something special on the 4th, which is the anniversary of Frank's passing. There's a few little moving pieces. So I'll be vague on that, because if it doesn't come together, then I won't let anyone down. But we're just against the clock trying to make something special happen. But there's always cool projects on the horizon, and I do the best that I can listening to the fans, and finding the right projects. I love the Mother's Box that we just put out. I love that band so much. I mean, Flo and Eddie are incredible.
Oh yeah. Well, I just as a fan want to thank two members. Well, of course, Melanie, but also two members of your team, Joe Travers.
Oh, the Vaultmeister, the best.
The Vaultmeister. He was the one, because I had done a little prototype of my thinking about what a book would be, and I sent it to him, and then he forwarded it to you. And the other person is Michael Metzger.
Oh yeah,
we have, as it turns out, actually a friend of mine from high school, Jim Campesino, who runs an agency in Seattle, knows Michael. And I want to commend you as a fan for the great, each one of those, I savor, and I still will listen to, the freak out. Uncle Meat is especially awesome.
Well, Bill, you got to see firsthand coming to the office where I am right now. It's a family-run business. All the people that we've been working with, we've been doing it for many, many, many years, and we try to all support one another. We're humans first, and we all care about, Frank's music, and we try to have as much fun as possible. And I love when people reach out. Like when you reached out to Joe, people get in touch with me, and it's pretty easy. It's easy to do the right thing. It might be a little slow. Sometimes it's fast, but we eventually get to, hopefully getting back to everyone and answering their questions and doing fun projects that are inspiring to us. And that's, case in point is you reaching out to Joe, and we got to do this great book together.
Yes, but to the fans listening, I just want to say that they're really on top of this, and Ahmet, I think you've done a great job. as the head of the Zappa Trust, because I, as a fan, anticipate all the new releases. And, I think Tom is giving us the wrap-up sign. So I just want to thank you, Ahmet. We always have fun together, as we did the first time we met. Thank you so much, because I think you're someone that the fans want to know. And if this helps them kind of know you and what's going on behind the scenes, then this has been fantastic.
Well, I had a great time, Bill. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. And Tom, we talked a little bit, in you organizing this. I think hopefully we'll get to do this. I don't know if you got me. I see my Zoom is unstable. I hope we get to do this again sometime. And thank you so much, you guys.
I love it. Excellent. And Ahmet, thank you, and thank Tom, and thank Melanie for all the help, and Aaron. And my final shout out is thanks to Mary Lynn Schaefer, Jesse, Michael, Lucy, and Mike Fink, and John Cirillo. Thank you all for helping this happen. And
did you stop swallowing moths? They came off your sweater. Yeah.
It's the yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it's the moths coming out there from. Thank you, Ahmet. All right, Tom, you want to wrap things up here?
Yes, thank you to both of you. This has been just outstanding. And Ahmet, the stories you shared about Frank as a father were some of the coolest that, that's the kind of stuff we never get to hear as fans. So thank you for sharing all of that. That was remarkable. Bubba, you want a beer?
Well, you know what? I'll take you up on that sometime in the future, Tom.
I love it. Hey, to all the audience out there, thank you for your time and attention. As you know, we continue to do these every Tuesday and Thursday. Come back on Tuesday at the same time. We're going to be featuring Ralph Simon and Ben Sindred. Promise you that's going to be really cool. Just like Ahmed Zappa, Ben Sidran is an impresario of many, many different talents. Anyway, everyone be nice to each other, wear a mask, and have a great weekend.
Don't be a COVID idiot.
That's right. Wear your mask. Thanks, everybody.
I got